Hi gang, and welcome to another episode of Mr. Ed Draws, and in this episode I'm going to be putting a subject on one of my paint pours. So I've done lots of paint pours, and some of them work out, some of them don't. The ones that don't, if they don't work out in a certain way, sometimes I can pour over them and it's just fine, but this one I didn't feel like I could pour over it. Plus I kind of liked it, even though some things went wrong with it, like the white cracked and things didn't move around and they kind of got muddy. But I like the color, and I like the small cells, because they kind of remind me of leaves. So I'm like, here, let's paint a tree on there. But I didn't want it to be a flat tree. I wanted it to have some relief to it, like like a relief sculpture. So I have done this before in a previous video. You can see an info card here. You can click on that after you watch this video. It'll show you basically what I do is put this adhesive sealant on there, and it kind of looks like frosting at first, so I go over it with a little straw to kind of straighten it out, and I put silicone on the straw so that it doesn't stick to it as easily, so I can get it to move around without pulling it up. So that's a handy tip if you do this. And I start out kind of basic with a large cut in the tip, so a lot of it comes out, and then I have another tube that has a smaller cut in the tip, and then I make smaller branches with it, and then I have another one that has the tip cut so that I can make these little dots and squeeze out just a tiny little bit and stick it to the surface, and then just do that like 3 zillion times, and you're gonna make these little leaves, and the leaves, when you pull up, it makes a little kind of like a branchy part. I call it a branch, maybe like a stick. It's like a little strand that pulls away. It gives it some relief, so it has this dimension. When you shine light on it from a certain angle, it has a little bit of a shadow, and it gives this neat little gradient. It's really subtle. So I went over it again with another layer of this after it's dried. I go over it again and do this several times until I build up this nice layer of leaves. Now they're small leaves, and you can see a lot of the tree branches through it, so it's kind of reminiscent of springtime, where you get those tiny little leaves that start out, and the color difference. That's my favorite time of the year, because you can see the most of everything. You see the leaves, you see the branches, and the color difference. I just love that. So I decided I would just do it in the plain white and just leave it that way, because there's a pretty good contrast. And at the bottom I used the tip and kind of smudged up grass, and I made the roots kind of open at the bottom. And then once it was dry, go over it with some varnish here. Now I should have thought about this to begin with. I use a sponge brush on my regular canvases to varnish them, but when I got to the leaves, since they had those little strands that had dried, they were grabbing the sponge and tearing pieces of it off. I ended up having to pick some sponge out of the varnish and switch to a bristle brush as soon as I realized what was going on. I'm like, that's not going to work. So scratch that, go to a bristle brush, and just move that varnish all around. And the varnish has a yellowish hue. If it's really thick, it's going to have that yellow to it, but if it's thin, you're not going to notice that as much. Unfortunately, when I was doing the bark in the tree, it would pool in places, and I tried my best to get it to not pool, but eventually when it dried, some of it was pooled in there. So I feel like I'm going to have to go over it with white again, just to touch up some of the parts where it showed through. Maybe it looks like sap, maybe it doesn't, I don't know. But I hope you like this video, and give this project a try. If you do paint pours and you don't know what to put on them, just try putting the subject on there and jazz it up a little. Leave a comment, let me know what you think about this, or if you give it a try. And also, if you like this video, thumbs up, subscribe, hit the bell, and of course, until next time, take care.